We are going to do something a little bit different tonight. First of all, everybody listening, tonight it's just me and Ronnie. Sedge is um, up in Maine, probably drinking lunch and drinking dinner
Eating crab, like lobster or something
and
like that.
eating
Uh,
crab. He
yeah.
decided to move on after JLC like he does every year. But um, we've been talking a little bit, and we are going to try something a little bit different for a while. And we're going to save all the admin stuff and what we've been up to later in the show. And we're going to start off talking about some woodworking ish things, woodworking adjacent. Ooh, that's what we should have named the podcast.
Woodworking adjacent.
Woodworking adjacent podcast.
And your name is in it.
My name isn't it. Now that I think about it, that's not a terrible name. Don't worry, everybody. We're not switching again for a third time from green suitors to three splinters. But um, I made a mistake today.
Oh, a woodworking mistake?
I made a woodworking mistake today. And, you know, obviously I'm a YouTuber, so I very rarely ever make mistakes. I shared the mistake on Patreon. So I've actually really started to lean into the whole Patreon thing. And like, that's like the best place to share these mistakes because that's like valuable information that, especially a paying audience deserves to like get the behind the scenes. So here's what happened. Let me set the stage for you. So yesterday, I finally added my um, scoring blade to my table saw. Nathaniel actually sent me one like months and months and months ago for the K3, and I never put it on because I was like, I don't really have that much of a need for it. But on this project now, I needed to cut down my the riffs on white oak drawer fronts, so they were like really really long cross cuts. Now I can do this on my table saw if I do like, the standard like put tape on one side and then like just go real slow on the cut. I have not changed my blade out. It's still the combination blade. So obviously also a blade that was more suited for cross cutting would also be a solution. But you still won't get as good results if you had a scoring blade. So the way I was thinking about it, do you have the TSV60 from Festival with the scoring
Yes.
blade in it? Okay.
Yeah.
So I had the TS60 and the TSV60, and I ended up getting rid of the TS60 because I used my TSC55 pretty much for everything. And I also have a TS55. So I was like, all right, well, this will be an opportunity, or this will be a time where I'll actually keep the heavier, bigger saw in the event that I was doing something like I'm doing now. But I didn't want to use the track saw to cut down my drawer fronts, right? I'm like, I want to use the table saw. So I'm going to install this scoring blade. So similar thing in terms of setup. Like on the TSV, you make a cut and then you got to like adjust the height of the blade and you got to adjust left and right just to make sure that it lines up perfectly. So I did that. Took about 10 minutes. I don't know. And I got all that done yesterday. Went out there today, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start cutting my pieces. So when you're doing a grain match, right, and you're using the same panel, you really got to be careful that you don't screw anything up. Because if you screw something up,
It's everything.
it's everything. You have to
Yeah.
get an entire new sheet. Which thankfully I have that. But I didn't want to do that because this sheet was like absolutely perfect for this application. Um, and it was the one I set aside specifically for it. Make the first cut, no problems. Nice and clean, beautiful. Second cut, no problems. Get down to the third drawer front. I push it through, pull the slider back, okay? But I'm used to not having the scoring blade there. So I've always pulled my slider back.
You
You
turned
already
it.
know what's going to happen. You
You
already know what I'm
turned
going to
it.
say.
Yeah.
So I pulled the fence back to just in front of the main blade, and I picked up the drawer front and started to pick it up and kind of move it. Well, guess what it did? It caught the scoring blade.
Oh, the veneer didn't do well, did it?
It did not do well. It was just like, because the scoring blade only sticks up from the material, what, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters.
Yeah.
The problem was is because there was a fence, then there was a stop. So when I picked it up, I kind of like picked it up and like kind of turned it towards the saw just enough. So it dug into
Oh,
4 to 5 millimeters worth of material, and I'm like, oh no, because the two bottom drawers are deeper or bigger drawer fronts, and the two top drawers are the same size but much shallower. Um, so I'm like, great, now they're not going to match, right? And my very first instinct was, I've got to scrap all three of these pieces, and now they're unusable. And I got on Patreon and I was like doing a story talking about it right after it happened, which, we've discussed many times. Sometimes it's better to just step away from the project or the mistake that you make. But yeah, I didn't do that. Definitely did not do that. I
mm.
looked at it for a minute and I said, well, instead of grabbing a new sheet, why don't I just cut the 5 millimeters off of this and then add 5 millimeters to the bottom one? So
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, so luckily it
Yeah.
was the bottom of the drawer front.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I cut the 5 millimeters off and then I added five to the bottom. But what I was concerned about is that when I did this, I planned for the drawer fronts to basically end right under the top of right, excuse me, right under the bottom of the drawer slide. And you remember when Sedge was talking that one time and he actually ended up making a video about it, is that he didn't account for the space needed underneath for the clips.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I was concerned about.
Hmm.
So by adding 5 millimeters to it, I lucked out and I still had about an eighth of an inch above that to where it could, clear the drawer. So crisis averted.
Oh,
But I
so
almost scrapped all of that material and went and cut another one. And once you do that, I mean, I'm talking the two drawer fronts at the top, they were like 130, what was it, 127 or 137 millimeters tall.
hmm.
That's just the way the math worked out. Um, so I would have lost both of those. You can't use those on anything later on.
Yeah. I think the way to put that into a woodworking wisdom thing, which we ran into the exact same thing today category. When you make a mistake like that, don't jump into the first conclusion that is to like recut it, start over again. Because sometimes if you just think about it, there's an easier solution before
Right.
you jump into the what you think is the solution.
I'm telling you, I was very, very close to
Yeah.
scrapping all of it.
I mean, sometimes it's the only thing you can do. There are sometimes, but I think with woodworking, a lot of times when you're making the whole creation, there's ways to get around redoing it. You
Yeah.
know, I think there's ways. And maybe the more involved the project, the more you can do that.
Right.
If
The
you
good
were
news is
handing,
too is that 5 millimeters didn't make enough of a difference. Let's say that I would have dragged it across that and it would have cut, 25, 30 millimeters. I would have had to scrap the whole thing.
hmm.
But this was such a small, minor thing that essentially, was able to be fixed. Then it didn't really change that much. Like, is the drawer fronts the same size now? No, one's 10 millimeters longer than the other. But nobody looking at it would ever be able to tell.
Yeah. I'll tell you the good thing is that the habit you had without having the scoring blade, it didn't end up being your hand or something like that because you're used to not being there. That would have sucked.
Right.
So I'm
Yeah.
sure a scoring blade would be just as bad on your hand.
Oh, absolutely. It'd be horrific.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's a really good point that I didn't even think about until you just said that. Like,
because it was not there before.
yeah,
Yeah,
now I
yeah,
have and granted, I'm not going to use the scoring blade very often, right?
right.
Material like this, certainly. But that's a really good point I didn't think about. Like, that's another thing that you have to be aware of that you could just simply gloss your finger over. Sure, it's only sticking up from the table, an eighth of an inch,
Right.
but that could do some serious damage.
Yes.
And it's going the opposite direction too.
Wow.
So God forbid it
It could
it
push you into
catches
the
your hand and
blade.
then throws it into the
Yeah, you could jerk the other way. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
Today.
I keep looking outside because I hire a service to come out and do like a spring cleanup thing on my yard.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
supposed to come tomorrow. Well, they're here now, right outside of my window.
Wow. You know, I don't know about your area, but on ours, I saw something come up from our weather guy in our town, and he said in his 20 some years of doing weather, he has never reported what is going to happen the next 3 days here. And I assume it's coming across Indianapolis before it gets to us. But he said in Western Kentucky, they're expecting 6 to 12 inches of rain in 2 to 3 days. And he
Yeah, it's
said
going to
that's
be bad up here
unheard of.
too.
He said that's unheard of. They're expecting hail. They're expecting just monsoon rains over a period of 3 days. And they're really worried about flooding. And he said that he's never in his career reported the things that they're reporting for the next 3 days. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Tornado warnings, too. A lot of tornado warnings for the next 3 days they expect for to be coming.
Yeah, we had one the other day.
Yeah, we did too. I think a lot of times you get it first, then it comes towards us. To touch on what you just said, we had that happen twice today with the boat. Cameron and I worked on the boat today. We had a little bit of delay the last few weeks, but we're kind of getting back on track and we're making the rear bench seat for the boat. Cameron had the job of rounding over the 60-inch long, I call it a rear bench seat in the boat. He was doing the round over on the router table. And when he got to the end, the router bit went around to the edge and cut the end of the board, the face of it. And he came up to me and he was like, I think this rear bench should be 59 3/4. And I was like, why? I said, why? And he was like, well, I got this little issue right here. If we cut this off and make it 59 3/4 instead of 60, exactly what you were talking about. Same exact thing. He just decided, I'll cut all six of these boards a quarter inch off from them and it won't matter. And that's what we did because it didn't matter because it wasn't fitting exactly in the opening anyway. We were leaving some breathing room. And then we had another issue that happened. I'll call them the L's that make up the bench seat. It's like the L shape. You put
Hmm.
the things on across the front. I had cut the L templates on the CNC to make it easier because it's an angled thing. And I subtracted for the two middle ones so that we could have a front across there. So I made them 3/4 inch shorter on the front. But what I didn't account for was the spacing on the top. We have a quarter inch space between each one of the boards. So the quarter inch space with three spaces made the middle ones flush with the front. And I couldn't figure out why. My gap went away once we put the boards on there. And Cameron and I both figured out together I didn't account for the gaps. But it's kind of a big deal because we already glued it together and everything. And we're trying to figure out what to do. And we thought we'd go back with a Japanese handsaw and just like cut off the middle parts. And this is another one of those where it's good to step back. We got in the car, we had an hour away place to go, and we're in the van and we're talking about it. And we go back and forth and back and forth. And then all of a sudden we realized the most simple solution. And it was just to cut the two ends and we could put it all the way across the face, no big deal. But if we had not left the shop and we were not driving on the hour-long drive, the solutions we came up with while we were in the shop were much more involved and was not even as good of an outcome. So I
Hmm.
think the lesson between what you said and what happened to us today was step back. When you make a mistake, first off, when you make a mistake, sometimes it means you're tired. Sometimes it means you've already done a lot.
Hmm.
It's best to step away, get out of the shop, and think about it before you do the next thing.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
I, f- I feel like when you screw something up, because my immediate reaction was very negative, right? It was like, I just screwed this whole thing up. Like,
Yeah.
I just wasted this material. But then I like sat there for a minute and I really thought about it. And I feel like your initial reactions are always like super closely tied to whatever you were feeling at the time and how pissed off you were that you just made that dumb mistake.
Yeah. It's equivalent when I was little and I reached in the like a whole pitcher of refrigerator and the Kool-Aid and I spilled the whole thing. And you sit there and you stare at it. It's like the worst thing in the world. You're
Yeah.
like, no, I'm gonna get killed. No. That feeling comes back when you make a mistake like that in the workshop. It's that feeling of, oh no, no, that did not just happen. And you stare at it for a while, even. You
Oh
like
yeah.
stare at it.
Like it's gonna grow back or it's gonna change. I don't know what it was. It was like 2, 3 weeks ago. The one of the doors, the door that flips up. I can't remember if I talked about this on the podcast. Um, but for some reason or another, I actually posted about it on Instagram. Did you see the post that I did where I had the door and I put a piece of blue tape on it and I said, Jason, this is the front.
Yes.
Don't be an
Yes.
idiot. So the reason I did that is
That's
because
smart.
the one just before that, which I had marked, for some reason, I don't know. I was just too confident at the time, which is a whole other conversation that we could have, right? You get way too confident in what you're doing, and that's when you usually make mistakes because you think you got it. Um, I went to go start drilling the holes for the hinges and plunge down. I barely take off like the very first layer of the veneer. It didn't even go through the veneer on the plywood. And I stopped and I went, this is the front of the door. This is not the back. This is the front of the door. And I pulled it up, and guess what? I still have that piece of material in my shop that has that thing. And I remember just feeling sick to my stomach. Like,
Yeah.
I
That
cannot believe I just did that. I edge banded everything. Everything was good to go. Yep.
and that one goes on the lines of that it's more efficient to batch things and do things in processes as a batch, but you better make sure you have things set up right or you're going to batch that mistake over and over again.
Yeah.
That's one that Cameron and I talk about a lot. I'm like, make sure it's right. If not, all these are going to be wrong.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing. Yeah. Mm.
So that's actually brings up a decent topic. So you guys screwed something up today. You came up with solutions. I screwed something up today, came up with a solution. If the boat was for a client, or if I was doing the same built in kitchen project for somebody, um, somebody's house, would my fix have been acceptable? Would your fix have been acceptable? What are your thoughts?
Well, that's the reason why I don't give too descriptive of a drawing to the customer. I make it vague enough that there's artistic changes I can make in the shop and they don't know the difference. That's definitely something. The reason why I do that, some people give like down to the minute like CAD drawings. I don't want to do that because it comes down to it. I think all good woodworkers or builders or modelers, everybody, you do what looks right. And right now,
Right.
when you were talking about your mistake, you're always factoring in the heaviest weighting is what is going to look right. What can I do to fix this that will look right? And I think as long as you have look right as your main thing, the customer is going to be fine.
Yeah, I don't know what made me think about that today. Like while I was out there doing all that stuff, I was like, man, we should actually talk about this on the podcast because I definitely feel like there is a difference between what somebody does for themselves and for their own home versus what they do for a client, or
Oh,
rightfully so.
you're right. The stress is gone when you're doing it for yourself. That's nice, because you
True.
don't have to second guess, is the customer going to care? Are they going to
Right.
be concerned with this? Are they going to be okay with this color? Are they going to be okay? That's a constant stress when you're doing it for a customer. It's nice when it's just for you and your wife, to know that. I
I
think that
I
helps.
feel like also though, like with a customer, maybe I'm wrong on this, but don't you think people probably have a tendency to over engineer and overbuild something in every little detail because it is for a client?
Yes. Yes.
But what's so funny about that is that when you do that, not only does it stress you out more, but it heightens your level of expectations for building it, which again, we're woodworkers, we're going to notice all the differences. No one else is, right? Like the client's not going to notice the things that I would notice. They may notice big things, but those big things, hopefully, like you're not making huge mistakes.
Right.
But it's like, what's good enough? Because don't get me wrong, if you were to come over, or if anybody was to come over, I look at the built-in that I'm doing, and I look at all the things that I know aren't quite right. Right,
Mm.
this you know, this base trim is perfectly even with the side panel on one side and it protrudes by like a millimeter or two on the other side. No one ever is going to notice that.
Right. Right. I
I
tell
do
you,
though.
it really helps me when I'm in very high end build houses and I always, check out the things that are being installed that in this or that. And it made me feel real. It was like real world moment to see that it doesn't matter what level of house, there's things that go on site. There's fixes that have to happen. There's things you're like, oh, I see why they did that. There's things you can
Right.
tell was not calculated. That made me feel better. We've talked about before the window seat. I saw this extravagant window seat once and raised up the lid and saw that it was just simple, almost pocket screw joinery type thing attached to the wall. And I was like, this is how real people are doing it in the real world, pulling off these amazing things. And it just made me feel better to see that. You know,
Yeah.
we know behind the scenes, and most customers just go by what they see, and they're not going to be as critiquing as we are.
Yeah.
That's something you always have to, remember. If you were to sell your kitchen, your house and your kitchen, years down the road or whatever, people are going to think it's amazing. They're going to think it's perfect. Even though these little things that are going on, they're going to see it as perfect, you know?
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about it today and I'm like, I don't know if I would have been able, if I was doing it for a customer, I don't know if I would have been able to, I feel like I would have recut everything. And maybe that's stupid, right? Like who is going to notice 10 millimeters difference on a grain
Right,
matched panel?
right,
That's even
right,
more important. Like the fact that it's grain matched makes it even less noticeable that the two pieces are slightly different because
right.
no one's paying attention to that. You know what they're paying attention to? How the grain goes perfectly up vertically.
Right, right. Yeah, the customer does add a thing into it. What I've tried to eliminate the thing that goes in your mind. We're like, are they going to be okay with this? Are they going to be okay with this? Like example, countertops that we just installed on Sunday. I was planning from the beginning to do just natural, no, pure Rubio on the walnut. And I started looking at pictures of her house and I was like, maybe she might, she actually might want it to be a little bit darker. Maybe I shouldn't do pure. And I was going back and forth about it. And finally, I took two pieces of walnut and I put pure on one and I put chocolate. I put
Chocolate.
chocolate on the other one. And I took them up to her house and I set them down and I was like, which one do you like better? I'm like, and I was to the point where I was like, I'm not going to decide that for her. And she picked pure, which I'm actually glad because I was wondering about the sapwood, if she was going to really want that sapwood to be that bright. And she did, and she liked that. But what I like about doing that is instead of guessing for her and stressing out about is she going to be okay with that, I let it be in her hands and I didn't have to stress anymore because she said that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
So that's but what you're talking about even more is something that you can't even explain to a customer. If you did, if you explained that to her, she would probably be like, "Okay, now I see what you're talking about. No,
Right. Yeah. Oh,
I
believe
want
me,
them
I've
to."
had that happen.
She'd be like, "Okay, now that you're saying that, I want that to be the same size." So sometimes it's better to just keep your mouth shut and not even say anything, and just do what looks right.
So, funny story about that. Nicole, back when I was in Georgia and I was doing client work, because I haven't done client work since Georgia, but when I was doing it, there was a few times where she would be present when people would come to look at their stuff, or um, I want to say maybe once or twice she actually went with me somewhere, and then I've had other friends, and I've been told on a few occasions that I have a tendency. Oh, even furniture that I built for the house, people come over, they're like, "Oh my God, I love it." I always have the tendency to point out the things that I'm not happy with.
Right, right. I
Again,
mean, I think that's everybody that does woodworking does that and
yeah,
shouldn't. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I do the same thing. I understand that. And to her, it's obvious. She's like, Jason, I think it's amazing. Don't tell people what's wrong with it.
right,
But you're thinking, I want them to know that I learned on this one and I'll never do this again.
right.
I wished I hadn't have done that. Wished I used a different hardware on this. But we're our own worst critics. That's what
Oh,
you're
for
saying right
sure.
now.
But you know what I think a big contributing factor to it is
Hmm.
social media,
I knew you were going to say that for
right?
sure.
Because, I think, I am not at the level of so many people out there. Like everybody that's like amazing, 99% of them don't even have social media followings, right? Because they're too busy like being perfect at what they do. But I hold myself to a higher standard because I see people like Materia Millwork, NS Builders, Casey Knips,
Hmm.
all of these amazing, remodelers, home builders, contractors, cabinet makers, all of these incredible people, and like everything that you see on their stuff, it's like the level of perfection
Hmm.
is unmatched. But going back to what we were just talking about, like, would you do this for a client? Here's a really good example. When I did the refrigerator surround, the panel on the left hand side, as it comes down, it has a slight bow in it and it bows inward towards the pocket door and then it comes back out and goes all the way back down. So no matter what I do, there's almost zero reveal in one 6-inch section on the pocket door, and then it's pretty even above it and pretty even below it. If I was doing that for a client, that would be the kind of thing where it's like, no, this panel needs to be perfectly straight. Like there was nothing that I could do to fix it. Because initially I was like, oh, I'll just, you know, I'll put a spacer in there and it'll bump it out. And then I'll drill the piece back into the side of the cabinet. Well, guess what? I can't do that because it's pocket door hardware. Nothing can inhibit the movement of the pocket door. So this is a scenario, again, using new hardware where I cannot come up with a solution. I just have to deal with what I've been given.
Hmm.
Now, maybe a little bit better planning, maybe it not sitting so long before I actually assembled the refrigerator surround. Maybe that would have helped. But at the end of the day, it's okay. It's my house. But when I go in there and look at that, guess what? The very first thing my eye gravitates towards?
Yeah, I know because you
That
know it's
spot.
there. Is
That
there
spot.
is there any way that you could do like one of those U channels recessed in, running up and down that would just pull that in the middle?
Maybe I can't remove the refrigerator surround at this point,
Well,
but
if you had two lines that like the U channel could go into, and that would act like an I beam to just straighten up that little bit of that bow, would it pull it in that much?
it might. But again, like for this, like I'm not.
Yeah, I mean
Again,
you're not.
I'm the only person that notices it.
Yeah, I was just thinking, is there a way to do that? Because that's the only thing I could think of to pull that tall of a panel. It would almost need some kind of structure in there to pull it.
It's a very small section. Well, then the other problem too is it's 3/4 inch material. So it's like unless you're using a flat metal bar, which unless that flat metal bar is very thick, it's going to bow. So it's
Yeah,
just going to conform to the.
I was talking about almost like those cheap kind of adjustable shelves type, that metal that
Mhm.
has the little brackets, something like that stuck in there that's screwed flat. It's like a little mini I-beam. I just wonder if that would do it.
It it might, but it's such a small section, which makes me believe that like just that tiny little section, you would need some serious strength to try to straighten that out. I think a door straightener on the inside where the refrigerator is would probably be the best option because maybe that would,
Hmm.
pull it flat. But again, it's one of those things. It's like there's
It's not
so
even
much more
noticeable.
going on there that catches
Hmm.
the eye that no one would ever notice it, but I do. However,
Yeah.
if it would have been material millwork and $100,000 kitchen, I can assure you that that entire thing would have been rebuilt.
Hmm.
And that's the difference. And I think that that's where like the separation is between people that are doing super high end client work and then people that are doing things for their home. And the reason I thought this would be so interesting to talk about is because as woodworkers, I feel like we obsess too much. Um, any other
Well,
project that I've done, I probably would have been a lot harder on myself and like tried to find ways to do it. But at the end of the day, I was like, this addition is beautiful. Like,
mhm.
there are
Right.
so many other great positive things about this. I don't care that this is like slightly proud. I don't care that this is slightly set back. I don't care that there's like no one is going to care.
Right.
And at the end of the day, here's another thing that I think is really interesting about cabinetry. People like will spend countless, countless hours dialing in their drawer slides and dialing in the reveals and dialing in making sure that it's like perfectly flush with the thing next to it. Guess what? After about 3 days of opening and closing that stuff, none of it is the way that you dialed it
Right.
in perfectly. And
Right.
this is a perfect example. Like right here, like it's not but when I set it all up, it was dialed in perfectly. But opening and closing these drawers all the time and the doors, guess what? They move, they budge,
Right.
they shift. Like it's not going to be that way. It looks great in pictures right after you install it, but if you really pay attention to it, it's not. I've been having that issue with the pocket doors actually. The pocket door hardware is great, but opening and closing those doors all the time, what's ended up happening is like the bottom of the pocket door hardware, like depending on like when they close, they'll close and then they kind of like the doors will close like this. And when they close, they have a tendency to go like this.
Mm.
They separate out because like the hinges and everything are pulling tight. So they close and then they settle. Well, what's happened, and I've noticed a couple of times, I've made the adjustment a couple of times, is if you look at the top and you look at the bottom, the reveal at the bottom is just a little bit wider than it is at the top.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is just opening, closing, sliding them back, pulling them forward, opening and closing. And so the hardware itself will have a tendency to shift a little bit. So like there's been a couple of times I went in there and I like adjusted it just enough, but 5 days from now, it's
Hmm.
going to be the same thing.
It almost is like the top has to be adjusted wider than the bottom, and then once the settling happens, maybe it'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that. We've talked about before how social media. I knew you were going to say social media. The reason why, and I had my aha moment with that when I bought some cabinets for a rental that we didn't have time to do anything else, and we just went to Lowe's and picked up some pre-made gray cabinets. And I was like, no, it was a bathroom vanity. That's what it was.
Hmm.
I picked up the bathroom vanity from Lowe's. I was like, it's nice, new gray, looks great. Take it out of the box, and I look at it with camera, and I'm like, if I posted this kind of a construction on anything on social media, I would get destroyed. It was half-inch particle board with white plastic triangles stapled on each side and a little bit of glue. And I'm like, that doesn't even seem acceptable for a tree house to me. It doesn't even. And I had this aha moment that I'm like, I am so far to the other side because of social media and what I think is okay. And then you've got companies that are selling bathroom cabinets made this way. But I did say to Cameron, guarantee you this vanity will outlast where it's out of style and it'll be pulled out
Oh, for
because
sure.
once you put a countertop on that thing, it's not nothing's happening to it. It's fine. Even though it's half-inch particle board on all sides, just about, except the front, with a white plastic triangle. It was
Hmm.
stapled on each side, and that's how it was put together. It's almost a cardboard back. It's close to a cardboard back. It's very, very close. And it works. It did the job. That's been in the house now for 5 years, 6 years. It's fine. No problem at all. And
Well, if you were to take that exact same thing, because typically the breaking point on that kind of stuff is the hardware. So if you were to buy that, whatever it is, and then you just put good slides and good hinges on it, it would last forever because how much
right.
use does a bathroom vanity get?
Right, right. And I agree with that. But also, even with the cheap hardware that comes with it, I've never replaced one that I've put
Mhm.
in. And it's in a rental house and it gets a lot of abuse. I've never replaced one. They hold up. They have cheap door hardware, with the cup hinges on the back. They've got cheap, those plastic roller, with the rails on each side, but they hold up. Sometimes they hold up for 30 years, on houses. And we put ourselves through so much extra grief because we know too much. It's not just social media. It's also, I guess, even at one time it was the all the HGTV shows and
Right.
DIY shows too. That would raise your awareness of what was available out there. But yeah, we're probably our toughest critics. Most woodworkers are, and most people don't look at the things that we look at, including reveals. They do see grain match and they don't realize it. That is
Yeah.
one. People don't realize it. They see grain match, they just know it looks right.
Yeah, Sedge just talked about that a lot. Like your eye is drawn to something and they don't exactly know what it is, but it's visually appealing, right? Like no one's ever going to come to the house that's not a woodworker and go, "Oh my God, I love the grain match you have on those drawer fronts." Like,
Right.
no, they wouldn't
Right.
even probably know what drawer fronts are.
Right.
You know?
And doing some walnut, well, I've done a lot of walnut glue ups this year, like the boardroom table and a kitchen island. And I've learned little things like, how when you have sapwood on the edge, if you can join that with sapwood for another piece on a glue up, it works really nicely. Like if you can, you got to account for that sapwood and the different variations and stuff. So when you go to install it, people just know it looks right, but they don't realize how much effort went into making sure that the grain flowed. Because
Right.
if you put sapwood on a long rip cut, it's going to be a hard white line, and it's just not going to look right at all. It looks out of place. It looks like
Mhm.
boards glued together, and it's hard for me when when you deliver it and the customer is like going, "Oh, I love it. It's awesome. It's wonderful." I just want to go, "Did you notice this?
Right. Yeah,
Did you
I've done
notice
that.
how have you
I've
noticed
actually
how
done that.
yeah, I'm listening there going, and they're looking at these knots and they don't realize that it's filled with black epoxy. You know, they don't realize it. It's like, how much do you want to truly point out to them that they don't realize how much went into it? We know best, I guess, what goes into it, but I think we've said before too, it's mistakes that make you a better woodworker. That's the only way you learn is by making mistakes. You
Yeah,
know,
for sure. And like trying something one time and it gets better the next time. Like one thing that I will say is that every single time I do one of these built-in projects, the process itself and looking and going, okay, here's what I need to do next because after that I'm going to be doing this. It gets better and better and better. And it's not that I haven't done it a bunch, it's that each time I'm trying to get it a little bit better, right? So
mhm.
um, really good example of that, with this current project was like even something as simple as snapping in the trim pieces, right? Like mistake that I've made in the past, it was like, oh, okay, my drawer fronts are going to be 18 millimeters thick. I need my side trim to be flush with the side of the door. So when I put my trim in, well, what would end up happening is the drawer fronts and the doors would protrude past it. I'm like, the whatever my backing is for my trim pieces, I need to actually protrude those out a couple of millimeters to account for the drawer fronts with the slides and with the hinges because they don't sit perfectly flush on the cabinet. They kind of stick out a little bit. So like little stuff like that, the little tips and tricks that you learn along the way from mistakes that you made on previous projects. And again, mistakes that we would call mistakes as woodworkers, but no one else would ever,
Mhm.
think twice about. Um, it just makes the process go so much better the next time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's why you have to account for if you're pricing it out, you have to count when it's something beyond what you've normally done. You have to account for that in your pricing and your time schedule because more than likely you're going to learn a lesson when you're doing something. For example, if you were a cabinet builder, but you were making a cabinet for a refrigerator or a large cabinet that you've never made one that size, there's opportunities to find out that you have some expansion going on in the middle that you have to account for or something. So I feel like whenever you do something outside of what you're used to doing, you better account for that time and money because you're going to learn
Here,
a lesson.
here's a question I have for you, and I'm just curious. I know you haven't seen it in person, but you've been in my kitchen, so you kind of know the scale, the wall that the built-in is on. I've been asked this a couple of times now that people have seen it. They were like, "What would that cost if you were to do that in someone's house? Like if you did that for somebody, what would you charge?"
Which one? Just
I'm
that one wall?
just that one wall built exactly the same way that I did with the pocket doors, everything, same material.
I think it varies greatly based on where you are in the country, but I think it would be anywhere from it hits a lot. This is a wide range, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear anywhere from 20 to 60,000. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that range.
It's so funny you just gave that range because I was thinking about it. I'm like, if somebody asked me to do this, I would bare minimum 40 grand.
Yeah, and in my area, I would 40 minimum. That I would think 40 minimum
Yeah.
because that it like you're talking about reveals, you're talking about hardware, you're talking about materials, you're talking about time and all that. Just it is what it is. That's what it is. It's pricing of it is what it is. You know.
I mean, the hardware alone and all the material for this project, 10 grand.
Yeah. See that even more tells you in the material. Yeah. It's and then time, installation, all that kind of stuff. It is what it is. It adds up.
This maybe I actually never talked about this on the podcast, but we went and met with a home builder. After I told you guys last time I was going to meet with them, a whole misunderstanding. The guy didn't actually own any of the lots, but we started talking about like price. He's just like a higher end home builder in the area, and something came up about like what his baseline cost was for like a a moderate home build, and it was over $1 million. And I looked at him and I said, I think the problem that we have and that we're going to continue to have is we cannot afford our taste. We cannot afford what we want if we were having somebody build it.
Hmm.
Because, and then we got on the conversation of like some of the built-ins and stuff that I've been doing and like the materials I've been using and the hardware. And he kind of like started laughing and shaking his head. He's like, like this kitchen that I'm doing, 100% easily could be $100,000 kitchen.
More than that.
Yeah.
I
With the
mean,
island,
yeah, I would
redoing the
say,
rest of the kitchen and that
yeah,
added
I'd
built
say
in, $100,000.
$150,000 kitchen, easy. You know,
And if I had to pay $150,000 through that kitchen, we would not have that kitchen.
well, the crazy part is if you were getting 150 with by the time the builder was done, it'd be a 250 $250 kitchen because he has to make his money too. So
Oh, for sure.
you would have a $250,000 kitchen, and then
Yeah.
you want more in your house than just a kitchen, so it would add up very quickly,
Oh, yeah. I
very
mean, oh,
quickly.
don't even get me started on that.
It
My
would. I
lawn.
mean, you've got bathroom vanities, you've got so much. It's and that I've talked to a lot of people doing what you and I do and everything we've talked about before that we cannot build a house because we know too much. And where do you stop? You would build a house in a neighborhood. For example, if you're building a house in a neighborhood that had $750,000 houses, you would end up with the house that you put $1,200,000 into or $1,500,000 because you wanted this kind of hardware and you wanted this kind of everything. It's hard. And that's where it's almost better to find a house that a builder built it and then come in there and do what you want to do to it versus building because you're going to pay top dollar when you build always.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a deal.
I think we're like this house, we're going to get to a point where we're really happy and it fits the style that we want. But when that something that a lot of people I've had this conversation with a lot of people, they're like, you got to be careful because, you're probably not going to get your money back. And I'm like, it's a little
Mhm.
bit different with me, right? Because I'm fortunate enough, like, to be in a situation where I can do a lot of
Content
this for damn near nothing.
and content. You need content, you
Right.
know. Yeah, it's and you're learning. You've got to learn somewhere, and it's
Right.
much better to learn at your own house than learn at a customer's house, you know. So there, it's worth it. And my first house was that way. I put a lot. I mean, it's the reason why my house broke a record in the neighborhood. But I bought when I was 21 and sold when I was like 27. I learned in that house. I did crown molding in the house. I did everything. And some people are like, "You did way too much to this house." I had nothing in it really
Right.
overall. I bought, it was labor, but it was labor of Kelly and us going out on Saturday night. We worked on the house, so it was worth it for me at the time just to learn how to do these things, and so it was worth it. But that was the most annoying thing to me that I still sometimes hear is like, you all have done too much here. You're never going to get your money back. Well, who cares? I'll tell you what you will do. You'll probably break the record and get the top selling house that's ever sold in your neighborhood. That's what you'll probably do. You're going to
Right.
raise the bar for everyone else because once they come in and appraise it, they're going to see, oh yeah, this house, it is the top of the market. We're going to bump you up some, you know. Look at the
What
comparables. Yours is going to be higher. They're going to raise it.
I can understand if, like, when we get done with this kitchen, and let's just say, well, for monetary purposes, it's $100,000. It would be the equivalent to $100,000 high end kitchen, right? Like, you're not going to find another house in this neighborhood or anywhere in this area that has a kitchen like this, right? Am I going to get $100,000 added to the price of my home? Yeah, probably not. Did I spend $100,000 on doing this kitchen? No, I certainly
Right.
didn't. And
Right.
again, that obviously that's the benefit of like doing the social media stuff and like, would I have used all the hardware that I got had it not been for Celiche being so generous with helping me out on this project? Like, probably not. Would I have used those pull-out trays? Yeah, probably I wouldn't have. Um, but those are the
But
kind of things that you're not going to get in any spec home
right.
or even high-end built home.
And that kind of wow feature is all it takes to make it be a bidding war on the house.
Yeah.
You can have an entertainment center in a family room that is just like people are like, I love that. And it makes them want that house more than any other one. And then that becomes a bidding war. And the
Yeah.
best thing that could happen is if it's cash buyers, it doesn't matter about appraisers. That's the best part.
True.
That
Yeah,
happens sometimes, and especially, didn't I hear that something was coming to Indianapolis? Some kind of Sillet.com kind of company or something was moving. What was it? I saw on the
probably.
news. That
Everything's coming here because it's
I mean,
amazing.
I know. Well, that's all it takes is it
Not
have some
really.
California imports coming in, and they think houses are free, and they don't care about appraising because they're paying cash, and it happened in Plano, Texas. Everybody just started coming in and just paying cash, and it goes crazy.
Oh yeah.
And you want to be the house that people want and bid against each other on. So it's worth it. If you were paying somebody to do it, yeah, it might be kind of dumb because you're paying top dollar and you're not going to get all your money back, but you will. You'll get a return.
Oh, I would think so. Like unless the market just crashes. But granted, we obviously overpaid for this because we bought it during the big boom. So we sold our house and made a boatload of money, but then we put all that money into the next house, which sucks.
You're in a stable
Oversold
real
one
estate,
and overbought on another.
but you're in a stable real estate market that just kind of stays steady. That's good. It's not like you're in a Florida up and down,
Yeah.
kind of, you never know what's going to happen. But I think there's a lot to say about you've got a lab. You live in your lab and you make things and you try it out and you make content out of it and you get the benefit of having it when you're done. It's
Hmm.
nice. It's nice.
Which at this rate, I don't know. I really need to start picking up the. I'd love to say that this project has gone so fast because I haven't been filming it. Well, it hasn't because I'm always traveling or doing something else. I need to stop all that. Um, that was a very good discussion. Very good discussion. For those of you that are listening, what we're trying to do is we've started to notice um, that if we're going to call ourselves the Woodworking Podcast, that we need to get back and have a topic. And that was great. So just like our old roots, that's what we're going to continue moving forward. But we're going to start doing the admin stuff later in the episode. And since we are later in the episode, why don't we do some giveaways, Ronnie?
Let's give away stuff.
Let's
Let's
give
give
away
away.
some stuff.
Hey, let's give away stuff from Sedge's shop since he's not here.
Yes.
Like
Yep. We're going
Sedge's
to give
shop,
away
like
his, what is
like
it,
let's
C70
just
Table Saw Festival?
let's pick out some things and just start giving away some of Sedge's stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't need it. So we have three giveaways this evening for three of our lucky patrons. We have two $100 gift cards for US Tool and Fastener, who I was just with at JLC. And then it is the end of the month, so we are going to give away another Festool swag item. And I promise everybody listening that I will get out the last 2 months giveaway winners. Dave Embry, I still have your pen set. And Nathaniel, I still have your coffee mug. But we're going to add something to it tonight. It's one of the Festool
Ooh,
Toolies.
I know that one. That's like it has all of the sizes. Is it Allen's or is it other tools?
It is Allen on one side, and the other side has three Torx bits, flathead, and Phillips.
Is that the one that has all the settings for all the tool changes for the common things like on the Capex and the rails?
It has all the common sizes with Festool that
So
you
like
need.
the rail extenders,
Yeah.
the all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's
Yep.
cool. Yeah, I like that.
These things are great. I actually think we have a few of them to give away, but we're only going to give away one tonight. Matter of fact, I just used one of these at JLC. So let's do a. Let's change it up tonight. Let's do a US Tool and Fastener gift card, then the Toolie, then the other gift card.
Got it.
So let's see. Let me get my pen out so I can make a note. Let's see who number one is. So this is going to be for a $100 gift card to US Tool and Fastener. The lucky winner is, oh man, look at that. Jerry from GA Woodshop.
Jerry.
Jerry Grennan.
Yay.
Jerry.
Don't you think it'd be
Uh,
hard to spend? Don't you think it'd be hard to spend $100 at US Tool and Fastener?
yeah. Oh, I guarantee you he probably has hundreds of dollars in his cart
Oh,
just waiting.
do you think that this gift card will cost people money, for it? Do you think
Oh,
that?
absolutely. That's why brands are always so like, oh yeah, we'll give away gift cards. You know why? Because people go there and they spend more than the gift card, so they're like, oh, we're okay
Okay,
with it.
so I'm gonna say, Jerry, go out there and buy 7 Pika pencils. I think you'll zero out that gift card.
Yeah. All right. Let's see who. All right. Now we're doing the Thule, right? The Festool Thule. Who's the winner? Now I'll get to hear about it. Like, oh man, you should have. I could have won the second one.
I'm gonna call that
Oh.
Thule blade changes and rail extensions in your pocket.
Kale Magruder.
Kale Magruder.
Magruder of M5 Creations.
If I was on an island, that's the tool I'd want.
If you had a bunch of Festool laying around,
No, just an island.
it's not like a Swiss Army knife.
I know. That's why it was funny.
All right.
Because if you're on an island, what you want is some Allens.
Yeah. Okay. Now, one more. This is for the second $100 gift card from US Tool and Fastener. We have Jaron Cox.
Jaron Cox. No relation to Jerry.
$100 gift card. I guess I should, while we're doing this, let's see if we have any new patrons. Let's see, new paid members. We sure do. Holy cow. Um, man, we have, I don't even know where I left off last time. We have quite a few. Okay, so we have Mr. Matthew Gerard.
Welcome.
It must be French. Gerard.
We have a lot of
Welcome,
high
Matthew.
end. We have a lot of high end French craftsmen.
We do. We
Yeah.
have Wes. That's it. Just Wes. Welcome, Wes.
Wes.
We
That's
have Juan Pierre Kelly.
Juan Pierre.
We have Derek Brading. And we
Nice.
have Steve Beckman. Man, we got five
Awesome.
new patrons since our last
That's
episode.
that's great.
It's probably because you weren't on here.
That's the people were like, is he? Yeah, we got to bring him back.
Yeah, gotta bring him back.
Got to bring him
He
back.
must be off because he's not making enough money.
Yeah. I'm like, it's not worth it to me.
Well, we still got, let's see, what, about 12 minutes. Should we chat a little about what we've been up to? I'm not sure how much
I,
you want to get into.
yeah, I'll touch on two different things. I've got a little list of things because it's been a little bit since I've been on, and I keep a notepad with just little thoughts that I want to share with you all and our listeners. Um, First off, I think everyone knows that my father-in-law passed away. I think it was like 11 days ago, and we've been going through that. I didn't realize. I don't think anybody ever really tells you, but like your father-in-law is a very close extension of your father. I didn't think I really realized that. My dad passed away about 3 years ago, and I think he instantly became like a father figure even more to me. So I didn't realize when he passed that it was going to hit me as hard as it did. You know, of course, it hit my wife hard, but
Right.
it hit me pretty hard. I think I felt like, you know, both of her parents, her mom passed away 2 years ago, and then her dad, and it makes I didn't realize until now that like you see that as another father figure leaving and you feel more like, oh wow, you know, and that's been an adjustment for me. It's been hard to watch Cameron go through it, so we've been going through that. Um, we've also I've know we've talked about my injury at Workbench Con, my separated rib, which
Oh yeah.
I still cannot sneeze or cough without it's almost borderline embarrassing. Like I have a process. I have to take my hand and I have to put it on my chest as hard as I can, and I hold back as much as I can. But there's some sneezes that they're just like, no, you're going to do this. And I'm like, no, no, no. And I'll think it's gone and I'll let go. And I'm like, no, it's coming back. And I just try to hold it back. But it hurts so bad. But I will say that the everyday pain is kind of gone now. Like it's like getting up, moving around, doing that kind of thing. It's better. It's just yawning, coughing, sneezing is still is like excruciating pain. So I'm getting through that. It's been interesting because I'll tell you a blessing in disguise on that is it's forcing me to let Cameron do more. And it's kind of been a blessing because I still see him as a little kid and I'm realizing his strength. And it's kind of taught me to just start stepping back and let him do the things that I'm always the one that grabs. And I've been
Mhm.
letting him do it. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is kind of a blessing in disguise because it's made me realize I need to let him start doing some of these things that I'm always the one that grabbing and picking things up. Um, he turned 18. He's been talking about for a year and a half. When he turned 18, he wanted to arm wrestle me. And that's been set aside for a while because right now, if I was to do that, I feel the strain like right in my chest if I was to do my arm in like an arm wrestling move. Um, so I've been dealing with that. Um, but
When
other
was
than
his
that,
birthday?
last week,
Oh
uh,
man, I feel like
yeah,
such an
on
a-hole.
no, on the no, not last. It was the 29th. What day is that? The days are running together to me. It was
That was on
Friday, Thursday or Friday of Saturday.
I mean, it's only your son. Well, yeah, it's not
Yeah,
that
yeah.
bad.
Well, he's 18 now. He can go to jail if he does something wrong. So
Yeah.
that's so yeah, that changed on that. But I just feel like this last 3 months have been just kind of a blur. And I feel like for all of us, we've it's conference time, it's been trip time, and I feel like I'm just trying to get into the swing of things.
Right.
That's kind of what we've been up to. We stopped on our boat building videos for I think a little bit over a month now, but we're going to be back on track like very soon. We're almost wrapping up on the filming of what the latest thing that we did, and we're going to get back to putting those on. And I have been very encouraged by the amount of messages that I've had on YouTube of people asking me at video 8. They're like, "Where's 9? I can't see it. Is it out there? Why haven't you put it out? Where is it?" And I'm told Cameron, I was like, "It's good that people are asking. It's good.
Right.
I'm glad, but I feel the pressure, but I'm glad. I'm glad people are asking. We need to get it updated. We need to get back on track. I'm so glad that Kelly's dad came and saw the boat
I was
right
just
before.
gonna say that. Like,
Yeah.
it's
He
so cool that at least
he
he
saw
got to
it.
come see it and you got it on all on video.
Yeah, he saw it right before you and Sedge saw it. He saw it like it was probably the week before that he came and saw it. So that was good. And I'll say another thing. I got to say it really quick before I get upset about it. It was amazing at the funeral. Her dad had two pew rows of guys his age, two rows, and I'm talking like this is like 25 people, like of pallbearers, honorary pallbearers, where no one felt like they were slighted, and then all of them, like a lot of them came up to me and they knew everything that Cameron and I did. And her dad didn't talk at all. Like you would tell him something, he'd ask you a question about the boat, you'd tell him, and he would just give you a stare and shake his head. And you're like, is he even listening to me? I don't know if he's even listening to me. People are coming up to me and they were like, I know you and Cameron are building a boat. Your dad showed me pictures of it. He told me all about this. He told me about this, told me about your van, told me about this. And I was realizing for the first time that her dad was telling all of his friends about what we do. I had no
Yeah.
idea. I had no idea. It was really amazing to find that out. It was cool. So I'm glad he got to see it. It was good.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been up to. And we're going to get back on track. Well, we installed the kitchen island we've been working on forever. We did that on Sunday because of weather. It just made sense. I haven't been posting. I've got the footage. I'm gonna start posting some of the things that we've done. They've turned out great. Um, but I'm just glad to get back on track because it just seems like since the first of the year we've been doing everything non-standard. You know?
Yeah. And now it's probably gonna start getting hot and heavy now that the weather's starting to warm up. So
Yes, yes. And I think next week we're going to talk more about your all's time at JLC with Sedge here, right? Uh,
yeah, I'll hold
because
off on
yeah,
doing anything about what I've been up to just because it was pretty much JLC because yeah, next week we want to discuss um JLC and then I kind of think we want to have a little bit of a discussion on, our tool shows dying. Which I think we've kind of talked about a little bit on here, but yeah, I think it'll be an interesting conversation, especially after a lot of the people that I talk to and like how so many people are upset that there's not a lot of cool things to go to anymore. Um, but again, social media has changed all that too.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
one thing that I did want to bring up, I know we don't have Sedge on here, but I want to tell everybody listening. So I know we haven't been on the best schedule with like the bourbon with the boys. I think we ended up having to do February's early March, and then schedules did not align, and life happens. So we didn't really do anything else in March, and then as we start looking at April, there's already a lot of scheduling conflict. So we may have a little bit of a break, and it may be an unnormal. This will be a beers of the boys actually because it would be an April one. Um, if we can even get one in April. So just be patient with us as we try to figure out what the best day for us to try to get one of these in. Hopefully, we'll get one in here in the month of April. But if we do, it's probably going to be mid, or we won't have everybody there. So I'm just bringing that up because I was like looking at. I know I haven't really talked to you guys too much about it yet, but I know some of the stuff that Sedge has coming up. I know some of the stuff that I have coming up. And there's quite a few conflicts already. So we will do our best to make sure that that happens when we can. Just be patient, everybody. We will make it happen. I apologize. I probably need to put that on Patreon too, because this is not coming out until Friday to patrons. So we'll figure it out. It's just not going to be the normal that we normally do. But we will do something at some point. Let's see. Do we have any other admin stuff? The meetup in September, SplinterCon. Uh, oh, I'll briefly mention this. Some of our patrons, we had a good amount of patrons because every time we go to JLC, there's always all the Boston boys or the New Englanders that come out and we have dinner, and it was a great time. Steve always puts together a little meetup for people to come. It's always awesome. Fantastic time. We had a great time at JLC, but we kind of locked in something that we had been talking about, something that I pitched to you, and you loved the idea of one of the classes. And I'll just say that it has to do with it. It starts with an ends and rhymes with aper.
It runs with Aper. I feel slow. it's it
Starts with
starts.
an S. I guess
Oh yeah,
it
yeah,
starts with
yeah,
an S
yeah.
and ends with
I thought
paper.
I think I reversed it. I was thinking it started with Aper, and I was like, Apers. Oh, I've got
Apers?
it.
What's
I've
apers?
got it. No, I thought that was an awesome idea. Awesome.
Yeah, well, I spoke to the horse himself, and from his
Oh
mouth, we may
wow.
be doing something pretty cool. So,
Oh, that would be amazing. That'd be awesome. Everybody be
yeah,
interested in that too. Even whether people own one or don't, they would be interested in that.
yeah, we're talking about Shaper, everybody. The
Yeah,
Shaper origin.
Aper.
Aper. We have another. We have another very cool potential class, and that one I've already been told is a go. Which, speaking of that, I need to contact him. But we may have another demonstration on some um, carving, which would be
Oh, nice.
pretty cool from one of our great friends who has been an episode guest.
Yes,
So it's going to be great.
that would
But
be
anyway,
awesome.
I think we only have 13 tickets left. We sold another two the other day, which is great. Um, and yeah, I actually got to meet somebody else that was coming, Lauren Lee. She came out to JLC. She will be attending. New patron. I think she became a patron and then bought a ticket to the event. Steve and Eric and Mike and Jeff and Michael, and it was great. It was a great time. Don Sargood was there. It was really fun. So
Kelly asked me last night at dinner. She's like, "Is your firefighter friend that gave you that shirt from Boston coming at this time?" And I was like, "I
he
think
is,
he
yeah.
is." And she's like, "Good. You tell him I'm glad he's coming." I'm like, "He's never met you before. I don't think so. He's going to be kind of freaked out." She said, "No, I just think it'd be cool. I want to meet him. Seems like a nice guy." I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
"Okay,
he's okay.
he's
Mike's
okay."
okay. He's a pogue, but he's
Cameron
okay.
goes, "Yeah, I like Mike. He's cool." So I
Yeah,
do remember seeing him on the list. That's awesome. I'd love to see that whole group coming down.
yeah.
That's
We got.
awesome.
I'm telling you, man, we got a great group that's coming to this event, and I still think that the rest of those tickets are going to sell. So
Oh yeah,
if you're
for
a
sure.
patron and you're looking to come to a great event in September and walk away with some really cool prizes, then you definitely need to come because we're gonna have some great blocks of instruction. We're gonna have tons of free time. We're gonna have tons of hangout time. We're gonna have great food. It's great hotel, great area. It's gonna be awesome.
And it
SplinterCon.
and it went so
And
well last time. And now we're gonna make improvements even on top of that. So it's gonna be
yeah,
like it should be like 36% better than it was last year.
at least.
Maybe 38.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna have like 70 plus people there, I think, this time.
That's awesome. That's
We're
awesome.
on
I'm
track
excited
for it.
about it.
Well, cool. Um, I don't think there's anything else to discuss. It's weird, like doing the admin stuff at the end. I feel like I'm missing something, but I'm not.
Yeah,
I like it better though. I'm
I
not gonna
do.
lie.
I do too. I think it fits better. It flows better.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool.
All right. So
Ronnie,
yeah,
I hope you have a great night, buddy.
I hope you do too. And I miss Sedge. Hopefully we'll get him next week.
Oh, he'll be back next week.
Yeah, we'll hear all about Maine and lobsters.
Oh yeah, and he can tell us all about the lunch and the dinner that he drank and
Yeah, the dinner that he drank.
yeah. Like literally, it's called dinner. He likes Maine. Oh, it's Maine Brewing Company lunch and dinner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be good.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to episode 178. Oh, wait, one more thing. I'm sorry, Ronnie. I know I haven't talked to you about this. Matter of fact, I'll probably mention it to you as soon as we jump off. But for everybody that did donate to Ben on and his GoFundMe, the thing that he's doing for Jen, if you didn't listen to the last episode, go back and listen to it. We talk about it in the beginning. Thank you. Thank you. They have raised a good bit of money. They're still not quite where they want to be to cover the entire thing, but there's plenty of time. So I just wanted to, again, from me being somebody that is very good friends with the both of them, thank you very much. It means a lot to them, and he even let me know that. So, other than that, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Ronnie, you can take us out. You do it.
See ya. Thanks for joining us. See you next week. Be sure to like, comment, love us, all that kind of stuff.
You got to do the Sedge thing.
Oh, bye bye.